So let's get into it. First episode of the Cyborg podcast, where we talk about AI and how it affects different parts of the world. So it's not just about Silicon Valley, it's not just about Europe and all of that stuff. We want to see what's interesting in different parts of the world, how I don't want to say the word thought leaders, but really smart people think about AI and its implications. With my co-host Doc Bigot, who's an AI practitioner himself, and Mr. Luis Buenaventura, who's a somewhat local legend in gaming, crypto, dog
Yeah, sure.
dog carrying.
Yeah, just put those slashes on everything. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
right.
Yeah, why not?
Luis, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? What are you up
Yeah,
to these
sure.
days?
Yeah. So this is an interesting time to be recording because I was like normally I would introduce myself as the country manager of YGG Philippines. YGG is a Web3 company, kind of one of the more noteworthy ones. Kind of saw the rise of Axie Infinity here in the Philippines, kind of became a global brand as a result of that. But based on kind of, I don't know when you guys are going to be publishing this. I'm actually going to be vacating the position in a couple of days. So I guess I'm formerly the country manager of YGG Philippines by the time this gets published.
So, what are you going to be doing next?
Probably just worrying about AI. I think I might do that like full time.
You're not worried about it yet?
I mean, I am, but I'm only doing it part time. So,
Okay.
yeah, now I can devote my full, kind of bandwidth to worrying about AI.
What are you most worried about
Um, God,
right
like,
now, part time in your
sure,
capacity?
part time. Yeah, well, art. I went to art school, graduated from UP Fine Arts. I was also kind of one of the first artists in the world to, kind of do the NFT thing back in 2017. So I guess you could say that a lot of my career has kind of been on this whole digital art trend, right? So like when I was in high school, I picked up Photoshop for the first time. And I don't know if you remember that stretch of time when Photoshop was just starting to kind of pick up, but like people were actually really questioning whether or not Photoshop was like
Legit.
a legit. Yeah, is
Yeah.
this art? Is this cheating software that allows you to make perfect pictures? Is this legit art, right? And we spent the better part of that decade trying to prove that artists that use Photoshop were still artists. And I think that kind of culminated in this NFT trend in the last 5 years where, kind of one could argue that the purpose of NFTs was to allow digital artists to be able to prove the scarcity or rarity of the art that they were producing, such that if you sold it, your JPEG, if you sold your JPEG, it's the equivalent of oil on canvas artist selling their painting, right? So that was kind of what NFT meant to digital artists.
Wait, sorry,
And
real
then,
quick, Luis.
yes, go ahead. Yep.
Before you get into that,
Mhm.
um, for the younger listeners, can you let them know which decade it was that Photoshop was not considered real art?
So, okay, all right, fine. All right, let me do it.
Just context.
Yes.
When was this?
So I was an 80s baby and I picked up Photoshop for the first time in 93. And I think so I can't remember the exact version, but I remember that it was on a CD-ROM. And for people who don't know what CD-ROMs are, those are kind of these circular instruments that you can actually put into your computer in the computer. And then the computer will kind of run the software that's inside it. It doesn't just kind of get beamed down from the internet, you know. Anyway, so yeah, so I was running this stuff from maybe I want to say version 4 or version 3 or something like that. And Photoshop now, they've stopped numbering the freaking versions, right? I think it might be like 15 or something like that. But yes, it was such a long time ago that people, kind of got very worried about like, is photography still legitimate, right? If you can apparently just edit the pixels any way you freaking want. In any case, so yeah, I spent the better part of the next decade or two trying to find a way to make people take digital art as seriously as they did traditional art. And then just in the last 2 years, AI comes along and then kind of blows that whole thing out of the water, where like I don't even freaking I have a hard time justifying it to myself now, whether or not my digital art is legitimate, because it turns out anyone can just do like, well, I mean, I'm not as well known, of course, as an artist, but you know, like a digital artist, like say Beeple, one of the
Yeah.
most well-known NFT artists. You can literally type in Midjourney, make me a Beeple in the style of Beeple, you know, kind of a picture of I don't know, Donald Trump naked, like kissing a pig, that kind of thing, right? And this is exactly the kind of art that people is kind of known for. It's kind of irreverent style, and it'll just spit out something that looks very much like something that people made. And that worries the
In
crap
30
out of me.
in 30 seconds.
In actually, so the very interesting, right? So very recently I got to see Beeple. I interviewed him on stage at Grafica Manila. So they Grafica flew him here into the Philippines. They asked me to interview him on stage. So I did the whole thing, right? Like talk to him about his career, all of that stuff. And then he capped off this whole fireside chat by making a piece of art live on stage to show the people how quickly he was doing. So Beeple is known for doing this daily work where he'll kind of publish on Twitter once a day. It'll be, you know, kind of some kind of real-time commentary on what's going on in the world. And he freaking did it in 25 minutes, right? But AI can do it in 30 seconds. So AI definitely better. At least in terms of Beeples. You know, and again, I am not as well known an artist as Beeple, but you know what? So my time to make one piece of work is about 100 hours, because I spent as like I really enjoy the process, so I spend so much time on one piece, right? So it bothers me that it is now, you know, Midjourney can, you know, do something of a quality that is very challenging for most human artists and hit it in about 30 seconds. Yeah, so that's it. That's where I'm at. And that's why, sorry, that was a very, very long answer to your first question, but that is amongst many of the things I'm worried about. That's kind of the primary one, because it affects not just myself, but a lot of the young artists that, you know, kind of they're learning how to become artists with tablets, styluses, digital, right? That's kind of the tool of the 2020s. So yeah, it does worry me for sure.
Have you tried to recreate Monero Cat with
So Monero Cat was
SDXL?
So Monero Cat was a little crypto hero that I made back in I guess about 2017-ish. And it was based on the cryptocurrency Monero. And you know, Monero was kind of one of those lesser known ones, and they were a big privacy. They were the best known of the privacy coins. So you know, meaning that you could not tell how much Monero any particular person had. It was kind of a big part of their, you know, kind of their ethos, that all of that stuff was obfuscated. Anyway, so I made this kind of Batman-like hero called Monero Cat, just kind of as a little mascot. In any case, I have not tried to kind of go all the way back to that. But I think what the things that AI are very, very good at is if you feed it enough of the stuff that is kind of, you know, easy to access, you know, so you know, names like Beeple and stuff like that, they're easy to find. It can make a facsimile of this stuff where, you know, it's accurate enough that, you know, a person who is not deeply acquainted with that artist will probably not be able to tell the difference. I think it's getting very, very close.
I'm gonna make one right now while you're talking. I'm gonna ask you one more question. I'm just kidding.
Thank you. You're just gonna really ruin my day with this one, but all right.
So what are you worried about? Is it gonna replace people? Is it gonna make art easier for people?
No. So I'm not worried about it making art easier. I think that in general, I am all for technologies that will make things easier, because I like I would love it if the internet was populated with nice looking things. There's a lot of bad design out there, right? And in general, you know, if people use Midjourney, or actually maybe not even Midjourney specifically, I play around a lot with the Firefly platform of Adobe.
Yeah,
that is some of that text manipulation stuff is really nice. Like it makes your posters look wonderful. But in any case, I guess my problem is that I am, if it disheartens me, so like someone who is, you know, relatively kind of established as a, you know, I know that I have a digital art career now. I worry what will happen to this generation of art students that are just kind of finishing school, Like they look at the stuff that Midjourney can produce and they'll be like, holy crap, I will never be able to produce stuff at this level. Should I just give up? And if not, if the answer is okay, I don't want to give up, what do I do? Because I don't think you will be rewarded for trying to perfect your technique in a world where Midjourney can do it way better than you, no matter what. I think that we kind of noticed that in the kind of more modern era of art, where kind of the Renaissance painters were always doing these anatomically perfect pieces of work, right? The Renaissance paintings were kind of renowned for this stuff, perfection, the human body rendered to perfection. Whereas modern art tends to kind of go in really wild directions because we now have cameras. So the idea of rendering the human form to perfection is a little less important because you could just fucking take a photo, right? And pose a model, take a photo, light it the way you want, and then run it through Photoshop, just in case there were some mistakes. So modern art has kind of gone in a direction where it's like, yeah, let's play around with the way we visualize this stuff instead. And now that we're at the point where digital art can basically produce anything that your heart desires, as long as it is an art style that has been previously created by someone else, now you're thinking, okay, it's like what happens next, right? I don't know what the next step is, but I imagine there's going to be some kind of movement that is post AI. Is that a term anyone has kicked around yet? Post AI? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's just called extinction.
Right. So that's my other thing.
We should coin it. Extinctionism.
Oh my God, dude. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that bothers me even more. But all right. Yes. If only in the context of art, there will probably be some kind of post AI movement. That I don't know what that will look like. But I think that the first artists that crack that will kind of make a name for themselves, mostly because they will be producing stuff that possibly AI is not capable of doing, or that maybe embraces AI in a way that I don't quite know yet. I play around a lot with this stuff because I try to produce a lot of my presentations and my poster work with a little bit of AI tooling, just because it's faster, right?
Right.
It's so good, Jesus! Like it's so good. I never whip up like Illustrator or Photoshop anymore because I can do this shit in 30 seconds. So
yeah, it's I think there's at least a couple of ways where this goes, right? Experiential art will probably be a bigger thing, right?
Yeah, sure.
So you have like dimensions that a computer can't do right now.
Yep.
Obviously, we can get into 3D printing and all of that later, but for now, like AI hasn't been able to process that. I think it's been becoming easier and easier to make new art styles and then training the AI to learn it. So I think volume might be the next thing. And I think there's going to be $1,000 movie made soon, because
Dang.
you could have AI that can just make all these images, right?
Yeah.
So, but I'm a bit more of an optimist about this than you are.
Yeah. No, I mean that's fine. Yeah.
What are you most optimistic about with AI?
Well, okay. I mean, I guess what am I most optimistic about? I would like a life where AI can do a lot more of the tedious bits of my daily kind of activities. Although, honestly, Google Assistant is already kind of okay for a lot of the stuff I need. Like I'm not especially now that I'm unemployed. I will not really have all that much need for things like a virtual assistant all that much. But yeah, I can imagine a world where everyone gets a virtual assistant, basically a smarter Google. Maybe it will need like to be like maybe 100x smarter than Bixby, maybe 10x smarter than Google. But something along those lines I think is very interesting. I also think that, and this is kind of both optimistic and pessimistic, I mean, I think the BPO sector is going to get blown out of the water, right? So from a customer standpoint, it'll probably be better.
Oh, that's optimism. That's the optimistic part of that.
I think I get, so it's like this, right? I understand that the BPO sector is a massive part of our GDP. But I think very few people would be in praise of the overall quality of customer support.
Right.
So in reality, so if AI comes in, perfects the rule book, is the perfect 24/7, always available, never sick customer support agent, then yeah, sure, I guess that will be better. But yeah, and then you've got an entire sector that gets blown out of the water. That is creative destruction that is going to account for quite a lot of young people, a lot of young people's jobs. Yeah.
I mean, so this is something Doc and I talk about a lot. The outsourcing. If you don't know what a BPO is,
yes. Sorry.
but
Yes.
Doc, you just did a talk about this last week, right? Do you want to?
Yeah,
I was in that industry talking about it right now.
Yeah, the Contact Center Association had an event in Cebu, and obviously the mood is doom and gloom, and I wanted to kind of balance that a bit. It can be doom and gloom if people lose jobs, but I think we're probably going to start automating more jobs first before we lose them, unless we end up messing up the automation as well. I think that's always the issue. Like, it's never you switch it on, everything's automated.
Yeah.
And I was quoting a Stanford study that came out, which showed that they monitored a call center that used ChatGPT, and generally it was a positive outcome. They were more productive, but the productivity wasn't balanced. It's not evenly distributed. They experienced better results with newer agents, like more basic agents who didn't know enough about the jobs, but the super agents were relatively unchanged. So everyone becomes a super agent is the outcome. But then the immediate implication of that is, if you're in HR, how do you reward? How do you incentivize people now if you're not differentiating by, let's say, by output? So that's obviously an open-ended question. But yeah, I think the mood after that conference was upbeat. But I also said, even if we automated, we also suffer from a marketing issue. Like, I don't know if Luis, if you'll agree, I don't think Philippines and AI kind of go in the same sentence for most people, elsewhere in the world. We would not be the first place people would look for AI-enabled talent. So I think that's an opportunity.
Well, I mean, I guess the way I think about this is that, if you guys agree that Midjourney is now at the technical capabilities of a really, really, really top-notch human artist, and then I guess my next question would be, can you imagine an AI support agent that is of the same quality as one of your super agents, as you call them? Do you think that is technically possible? I think the answer to that is yes, right? And I don't think it's an if. I think it's more of like a when.
Okay.
And then when if we're just talking about time frame, I don't think it even matters. Like country stops to matter at that point, because the AI is just in the cloud, right? So it doesn't really matter where it is. I think that it will completely rewrite the BPO sector of the Philippines, because you don't need it here. You don't need all these buildings, all of these people that are like having cigarettes at the ground floor lobby at like 11 at night, right, in between breaks and stuff like that. All of that disappears, and then what? I don't know. I think that we've seen a lot of technological revolutions over the last 100 years. Every single time we look back and say, well, it was actually better for society in general, and that's usually true. But there's always a period of real destruction, where kind of a lot of people are either completely disenfranchised, displaced, and then there's a period where kind of there's too much hype around a particular technology, as is kind of happening right now. We saw it also kind of happen with cryptocurrency. I feel like every few years there's too much hype around cryptocurrency, where we think that this thing can do way too much in the here and now, and we kind of tend to overestimate its abilities, right? There's a lot of stuff like that in every technological revolution, and yeah, it's going to be crazy watching this stuff happen, because I think the velocity of it is going to be the thing that surprises us the most. Like in the rush to optimize profits, I have a feeling that the BPO sector is not going to worry quite as much about, firing thousands of people. They're probably going to try to optimize the crap out of like, hey, if we perfect our AI, support agent bot, then, we can handle 100x the number of support calls, and we'll do it with a single AWS server or whatever this magic formula is. I feel like that's a way more likely future scenario than to have like this, raft of human super agents that are kind of maybe working hand in hand with AI. I don't know. I don't see that happening, to be honest. I feel like it's going to be straight up replacement in the end.
Yeah, I think so many people say, your job is not going to be replaced by AI. Someone using AI will be replacing it. But really, like, I think an employer who wants to replace you with AI is going to replace your job, right?
Yeah.
And it's getting way easier to do that than before. And I think, Luis, you hit it on the head where, like the whole idea of the West outsourcing stuff to the Philippines is because people spoke English here, plus it was very cheap, right?
Right.
So to mechanize a task that was
Yes.
pretty hard to do before. But if you could just mechanize it to an AI that pretty much does the same thing,
Yes.
why outsource it anywhere else, right? So like even if like all these BPOs started making AI for themselves, there's really not much stopping a lot of companies in other parts of the world to be making those things too, right?
Right.
I don't think they have moats that they could build, like data that they could have that's training AI.
The moat was always cost.
Right.
It's always
Yes.
cost.
Exactly.
So if AI can do it cheaper, I mean theoretically, much cheaper, they never go on leave, they never complain, they never go on strike. That's going to be the equation later on.
They don't unionize, stuff like that. Well,
No
actually, that
strike
might be the
scandals.
next thing, right? Like we can, instead of the Human Rights Foundation, we have like robot rights and stuff like that. That'll be great. Yay!
Oh, there's already one. I'll send you a link later.
Oh,
I don't
great!
want to give them
Wonderful.
airtime. But so wait, what else are you optimistic about, Luis?
Good Lord. I don't know. Maybe medical research? Jesus, I don't know. Like honestly, there's a couple of areas that we haven't really touched on quite as deeply yet, because a lot of the stuff that, ChatGPT 4 can kind of do right now, it's still it's a little bit like high level stuff, right? It's not I don't think we're going super deep yet. But things like cancer research, stuff like that, like I'm optimistic that this stuff can kind of make headway in areas where humans just have real trouble. I don't know how far off that is, but that being said, exponential.
I saw a stat that was like astounding last week. Something like 80% of microscopes in the US are still not digital, so they're not even capturing that data in like digital formats yet.
Oh,
wow. So we might be a bit off. I thought you would think we'd have all this data by now about cancer.
Yeah.
We just didn't have the AI to process it. But we don't even have the data really.
Oh, thank God. So we'll still need those human slaves to digitize all of that data first, so that the AI can kind of solve all of our problems. Okay. But I'm not sure if that's the job that I want humans to still have. But like, so going back to the art thing though, so my girlfriend is a painter. Like she paints with actual materials like acrylics and canvases and all of that jazz, right? And I was thinking that, oh my God, you might actually end up, your career might actually be much longer than mine, because I never learned that stuff. Because the digital side is definitely kind of in a weird fork in the road right now. But the traditional artists, like the allure of their work was always that people wanted that wooden frame, like that they could put around glass and kind of mount on their wall. That was the thing that they were buying. They wanted this thing that they knew was, kind of tangible and they could appreciate in real life. And that part I think is gonna be maybe okay for a little bit. Granted, eventually everything you could if you just cast your mind far enough into the future, everything can be eventually recreated with bots, automatons, and AI, I suppose. But at least for now, it seems like those artists are actually going to be all right. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I might actually have to like relearn all of this stuff if I still want to keep selling artwork, which is funny experience at 42.
Or maybe you just stay with YGG, man. Sounds like it's
well,
gonna be tough
okay.
to be an artist.
Thank you for thank you for that thought. I didn't
I mean,
realize I was gonna receive some career advice today.
I think there's a, I think there's a distinction to be made between like commercial art and fine
Yeah,
arts,
yeah.
right?
Sure.
And I think
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see how the collectors of the art start and the buyers start to price AI art, right? There was
Sure.
4 years ago, there was that piece of art that was made by generative adversarial networks, an
Mhm.
AI model
Uh-huh.
that was sold for like $432,000 at Christie's,
Mhm.
right?
Uh-huh.
It was the first AI art that was ever made, but like now it's like ugly because AI could do so much better than that.
Yes.
But I think there's going to be a lot of artists who should be using AI for commercial stuff, right? Because like,
Yeah.
why would you have to create another logo? Right?
Yeah.
Why would you spend
Yeah.
time doing any of that stuff, graphic
Yeah.
design stuff, when you can?
You know what?
things.
One of the other things that it's like that this particular vocation is just gonna like completely disappear. Stock photographers, like those guys who create kind of these images that you use maybe in presentations, right? So my favorite one is Asian businessmen pointing at a whiteboard with some formulas written on it, right? I mean, that is a very common kind of stock photo that you kind of usually need to depict, okay, whatever, corporate life in Asia. And you can do that with AI now. And each time you render a new version of it from Midjourney, you'll get a slightly different version, and it looks interesting, right? So you can do stuff like that without having to worry about the models that you would pay, the photographer, the set decorator, the venue, all of that crap, right? So it's basically essentially for free. Well, not free. I guess Midjourney is like $8 a month. Very reasonable if you consider how much like an entire photo session is going to cost normally. So you can do stuff like that very quickly. And it does, and kind of there are photographers who make a living from basically just selling royalty-free images on iStock Photo or Getty Images, and all of that stuff is gonna suddenly just you're gonna kind of have to wonder, and why am I paying for the iStock Photo license? I can literally just type in exactly what I want in Midjourney.
So is that your new startup? Is that the scoop that we have for
No.
your next career move?
No,
You're
I
putting
don't
stock
want-
photography people out of business.
No, I don't want to. I don't want to help.
Don't want
And
to
also
help.
because I also think that Midjourney has already done it, right? It's just that
Yeah.
people have yet to realize how easy it is to do it with Midjourney. So you kind of have to combine a couple of tools at the moment, because Midjourney kind of creates these images that are not high resolution enough. So you create it with Midjourney and then you upscale it using another AI thing, and then you get like the ultra high resolution stuff that's ready for print. And
Which one?
basically, you're good to do.
Which one do you like for upresing?
Topaz, I think, is the one that I've got
yeah.
installed. Yeah, but I tried a whole bunch of them. But yeah, it's kind of at that point right now where it's literally just you watch a YouTube tutorial that lasts about 8 minutes to kind of produce professional level images that are ready for print that you don't have to pay royalties on. And that's crazy. That is crazy.
Yeah, that's a very important area of disruption. Like the revenue streams that used to
Yeah.
go to artists, they just
Yeah.
go to the AI guys. I don't know how that's going to end up actually, whether that ends up killing creativity.
Well, it's going to end up making photography harder as a profession to break into, because like the well-known photographers, they're not going to lose their jobs, because the reason why you hire the well-known photographers is because you know that their name stands for something, right? And suddenly I'm blanking kind of on the names of our local photographers that are really well known and well respected, but you hire them specifically because they've got a particular eye, and also it's a little bit of a signal that you can hire the best of the best when you pay for their time, right? But it's always going to be the mid-range guys, or the guys who are kind of starting out, that are going to be the most edged out by the fact that, well, I mean, we don't need this particular guy. He's charging us, just for example, 10,000 pesos per shoot. Why would we need to pay this kid 10,000 pesos per shoot? We'll just like spend a few minutes on Midjourney, right? That is a way more likely outcome. And so what happens to that 10,000 peso per shoot photographer who's just starting out? Well, shit, I guess he's got to keep looking for keep working in that BPO thing. But oh wait, I guess that BPO job might not be all that secure either. So you know what I mean? It's gonna be tough. The next
What do you
couple of
think?
years are gonna be tough.
What do you think they should be doing?
I don't know, man, because like I've got background. One other thing that I do on the side, other than YGG, is I have an art guild. I've got like 200 artists in it. They're all underprivileged artists, so they're all scattered across the Philippines. They all came to us because they wanted to kind of learn how to become NFT artists, and we help them find gigs. So we're basically kind of like a talent agency for underprivileged Filipino artists, and I have been struggling the last couple of months to kind of tell them what to do next. I mean, obviously, they all still want to be artists, but the jobs are a little bit harder to come by because quite a lot of the stuff that they can produce that we would, would charge the client for this, that client, if they were savvy, could really just go to, an AI thing and have it done almost instantly. So I'm kind of at a loss right now. I don't quite know where to go with it. Yeah.
Have you taught them how to use Midjourney or something?
Oh yeah. So we do every month or so we'll do kind of this little town hall live stream. It's just me and the artist, and then we'll kind of play around with new tools. So sometimes it is things like Midjourney, sometimes it's like technique, right? Like, okay, so this is how you would work with light and shadow if you wanted to kind of, like actual art workshop type stuff. And a couple of months ago, we actually talked about Midjourney, and for a lot of them, it was the first time they'd ever seen the output of Midjourney, and I think this was 5.1. I think that might be the most current version.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of them were shocked by how insane the level of detail was, how kind of like everything was correct, right? So we did this experiment where we would go, you know what, let's just come up with a little story, and then we're gonna like make some illustrations for this story, right? And we go like, okay, photorealistic Asian chef working in a really busy kitchen in Hong Kong, right? So it's like lots and lots of detail. Midjourney comes up with 4 examples in literally 30 seconds, and everything is correct about these photos, right? The lighting is perfect, the kind of the faces look exactly correct. And there's not any of that weird shit with the hands. Yeah. I think that like in previous versions, you could always tell it was AI because the hands were a little wonky.
Yeah.
But I think 5.1 is starting to kind of work that out finally.
Yeah, they're figuring it out.
Yeah. It's getting less and less. I still spot it every now and then, but it's getting weeded out a lot faster than I thought. I thought it would be like maybe, I don't know, well, longer than this, right? But Jesus, like I was making these hand jokes 4 or 5 months ago, and now it's practically gone. So
I mean, how are you at drawing hands at 5 months old, Luis?
Oh, come on. Well, to be fair, I at least understood that hands had 5 fingers, which Midjourney really struggled with in the beginning.
I think I figured that out at like 12 or 25. The Simpsons still haven't figured it out, right? So
that's true. Yeah, you're right.
Our style.
That's funny.
The Creative Industries Association, I forget what they called, CCAP, of the Philippines. They're pushing for more artists to have IP, right? Because services are kind of dying, right? Plus, it's not a great business really, unless you're doing it at scale. But they're pushing for IP. Have you tried getting your artists to make more IP? Because like me, I'm like, maybe I should just make children's books and sell it on Amazon. That sounds like it's super doable now. That's all this art I couldn't do before.
Yep. I mean, I like the idea of allowing people to. So I mean, if you look at it purely from the perspective of tooling, these tools are, I mean, Jesus, like exactly the fact that you can write an entire novel with a ChatGPT prompt. I mean, that might be a little too much. I take issue with the idea of writing a novel through a ChatGPT prompt and then selling it on Amazon. Why? But like hell, I guess it works, right? People are able to get away with it. I can't speak to the quality of that writing. Does it even make sense? I've never actually bought one, but I know that people are.
You should probably read it before you try to sell it.
I would think so, right? But can you feed it to another AI and that AI will tell you whether or not it was a good story?
Yeah, you could do that, or you could just read it.
Yeah. So I mean, it makes a lot of stuff possible. And if it was just this, I'm actually kind of a little less worried about it, because I guess you can kind of say the same thing about the blogging trend of the early 2000s, where kind of we democratized publishing, and it made everyone a writer, including people who had no business writing, right? But that's technology. That is what democratization means. So yeah, I mean, a million blogs flourished, of which 99% of them were absolute crap. But 1% of them was things like, for better or for worse, Huffington Post, and kind of
Right.
these big things that became empires, right? And that's fine. I guess that's what that is what technology sometimes allows for. And if that was the extent of what AI was going to do, I would be less worried about it. But I think where I'm deeply concerned, I think, is that unlike all of these other previous technologies that we've seen, AI is the only one that can self-replicate and self-improve, or at least that's kind of what we're aiming for, where the ultimate version of this is an AI that can fix itself. And that is beyond anything that we've ever built before. Like, no car can improve itself, right? It needs humans for that. So I guess that's kind of where I'm at with the AI, I guess AGI path. And granted, don't know how long that's going to take, but it is something that kind of worries me a little bit, because a lot of this stuff can get out of control pretty quickly. I think we can, as a society, we can mend around these creatively destructive things like AI art, displacing artists, and all of that stuff. And we can kind of like work our way around that, figure out new jobs, figure out new career paths. But when the thing itself that's producing all of this change can keep changing itself, then it becomes completely like, holy crap, I don't know where it ends. And that's a little frightening, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it could fix a bunch of stuff too, right?
Yeah.
But the I worked on my first AI image generation model in 2018, when like it was mostly GANs, which is not as good as the fusion models, right? But even back then, I was trying to figure out a business out of it, and we're talking to a lot of my artist friends in LA, and they didn't want to use it, right? Because like it's replacing their art. I'm like, well, you could discover new art direction like minutes, right? And what I eventually told them was like, I think Ragnarok, Thor Ragnarok was just coming out, or not even out yet, but something like, when in Thor Ragnarok, Thor's hammer gets destroyed by his sister or something, and starts crying about it. And then Odin goes to him and says, you're Thor, you're not the god of hammers, right? Like, if you're an artist, you're not the god of pushing pixels on Photoshop. You know what I mean? You're like, people. I mean, when it comes down to it, people still have bad taste in commercial art, and you still have to figure out which one's going to be commercially viable, or like it's on brand or something. Like, I think, people don't like making those decisions, right? In business, especially. So they'd rather have somebody who has the eye for it. But it does but you'd have to the cycle for building up your name to become the best photographer in the Philippines, which I think is Ana Reyes Morales, and then you have Jake Versosa too, who's also making a lot of AI art stuff. But like, you still need that person to tell you that this is good, right? Or like put their name on it that this is good. And I think
so I agree with that, because I think that the thing we're not accounting for is taste. Yes, and that is correct. Midjourney itself does not give a flying F what you type into the prompt. It'll just make it, right? Whether or not it's in good taste, it will make it for you. So I think my counterpoint to this is look at your average either graphic design firm or advertising agency, and typically there's like an entire art team here, right? There's an art director at the top, and then above that there's a creative director, and then an executive creative director, many layers of director. And then you've got an entire team of, I guess let's just call them the execution team, right? These are called final artists, because these are the guys that actually prepare stuff for print or collaterals or whatever. Now, I guess what AI replaces is those people, those worker bees. They're the guys who are actually pushing the pixels. But above them, the creative director, the art director, those are the guys who are actually defining the direction of this thing. So I guess if you follow your kind of thought, then what you are doing is you are retaining the jobs of the people with the eye for the thing, but you are kind of eliminating the need for kind of the rest of the team, the worker bees, the guys
The
who are
grunt
actually
work.
creating stuff. Yeah, and but the problem is that's where that art director started, typically, right? He joined that agency as one of those kids, or maybe even worse, an intern who was kind of, watching one of those kids. So what is the path now for that art director actually to develop their eye? I'm not sure. I'm not sure, because I
Right.
tell you, I'm 100% sure you're not born with that. Some of that taste needs to be refined through years of experience. And one of my favorite quotes, and I'm not sure who said this originally, is that there is no compression algorithm for experience, at least in terms of for humans anyway. I guess for AI, maybe there is. But yeah,
There better
but
be.
yeah, there freaking better be, right? But yeah, for humans, there's no compression algorithm for this stuff. You have to
Yeah.
go through it in order to get good at it. So I don't know what the path is. If they can't rise up from the ranks, then how do they get to that level of skill? I don't know, right? So there's a
Yeah.
lot of question marks in my mind about this.
And I think that's what's going to happen with a lot of these things, right? Like the study that Doc mentioned earlier at Stanford. One, as an employer, why did you pay a 10-year veteran when you could get somebody for half the price doing the same output, right? But two, this is probably going to happen pretty soon in the legal field, right? Like a lot of the lawyers start off as first-year associates doing grunt work, doing stupid research, doing all kinds of monotonous things, but you learn something there, I'm guessing. But they're not going to do that. I mean, paralegals are probably going to be replaced pretty quickly.
Right.
So if you don't have that foundational experience, like what do you do then, right? But like I think, maybe the point of life is not to work. I don't know. Maybe maybe you're ahead of the curve.
Like in Wall-E, fat humans and robots.
Oh my God. So, okay. That's so very funnily, because you kind of mentioned that, I guess now we can talk about UBI. Because you opened the door.
Yeah. Who's going to pay for that? Universal UBI is universal basic income.
Yes,
it's a concept that's been tried out in different parts of the world to various levels of success
and failure. Yes.
I was being nice about it, God.
Okay. Okay.
So what do you think? If Philippines had UBI, who would pay for it? Like,
I have no freaking clue, man. But like, I think that actually, the angle I was going to take on this whole thing was Sam Altman, right? So the founder of the CEO of OpenAI, but he's also the co-founder of this company called WorldCoin. It's a cryptocurrency kind of startup that, amongst other things, produces this orb, just wonderfully dystopian. It is an orb, a hardware device about the size of a basketball, and then you stand in front of it and it scans your retina, and it uploads your retina data into a decentralized database in the cloud. And with this, you will now have a biometric footprint that will allow you to, authenticate as a real person, not a bot, not a piece of software. You are a real person, as long as there is a way for that retinal scan to kind of like match up against your eyes. Now, in order for him to get people excited about WorldCoin's orb, he is giving away 25 of his WorldCoin tokens to everyone who gets their eyes scanned. And the current conversion rate, those 25 WorldCoin tokens are worth $50. So you can imagine that in a country like the Philippines, this is the kind of thing that, hey, like if I could just like rock up to one of these orbs somewhere here in BGC, I wouldn't mind getting $50. That's great, right? So, and you can imagine the syndicates, right? So these are people aggregating poor people and making them, kind of line up in front of this orb and saying, hey, we'll pay you $10 to get your iris scanned, and then they'll keep the $40. And this is already happening in parts of Africa that already have the WorldCoin orb. So in any case, Sam Altman.
That's your new business?
No, it is not I don't want to help any of these guys. I'm just describing where we're at with all of this stuff. I don't know where I stand on this WorldCoin thing, but just to kind of bring it back, one of the reasons why Sam Altman is a big believer in the WorldCoin concept is because he believes that AI is going to disrupt and displace a lot of jobs, and then WorldCoin will make UBI a little bit more feasible, because at least we can verify that the people who are receiving the UBI are real people, That's kind of his fundamental step in that direction. So that's kind of where he's at with his dual startups, right? They complement each other theoretically.
Yeah, and while he was president of Y Combinator,
yes,
he started a program to test UBI in the Bay Area. And it's a longitudinal study, so I think it's still going. But
okay.
I think they're going to do a 10-year. They're going to do it for 10 years before releasing any information about it.
What was the amount? Do you remember?
Didn't say.
Oh, they didn't. Okay.
Yeah. But
all right.
I think Doc and I were talking about this over lunch. I think iris scans are way less invasive than a facial recognition camera, right? Like, well, even if I were able to hack that database, like, what am I going to do with a bunch of eyeball data? I mean, I guess get benefits from things, but other than that, I can't identify the person.
Correct. Yes. There's all sorts of interesting kind of angles on that. Like, I actually kind of read a little bit about it, and it turns out that not, kind of obviously the easiest is fingerprints, but not everyone has fingerprints. And unfortunately, the people who are most likely to not have fingerprints are the ones who are probably most in need of UBI, because they're usually manual laborers. Like, they work so much that it kind of rubs off the prints on their fingers, so you can't get a viable print from it. So retinas instead. Now, it turns out one other thing, and you could, by the way, you can feel free to edit this out of the podcast if this is inappropriate. But apparently your butthole is also unique.
I feel like you're trolling us now.
I'm not trolling you. Your butthole is unique.
How do you know that, Luis? How do you have this information?
There's actually a startup. Well, it's a startup concept called Buttcoin that I suppose was possibly in response to WorldCoin. But in any case, the point of it is that, your retinas, you could lose your eyes, but you can't lose your butthole. So, that's a much safer
identification mechanism.
Yes. And it's also
that's
a little
the
bit
worst sales pitch I've ever heard you give.
And again, I'm not, this is not my next startup. I'm just, I am just describing the lengths that people will go to identify themselves online.
I think this gonna be the title of this video: Luis Buenaventura looks at buttholes.
Well, I mean, I'm only really familiar with my own, but in any case.
All right, so
that's wonderful.
Doc, you have questions, right?
Maybe from a business standpoint, I mean, people are getting disrupted on the ground, education, art, but I don't see businesses moving in the Philippines, at least moving, or at least excited about AI. I could be wrong. Any thoughts on that, Luis?
I think it's just lack of awareness. I think that I think we've seen this in every, like, just cast your mind back, like maybe about 15 years ago, back when cloud computing was something that was novel. Like, how many years did it take before, I don't know, pick your favorite Philippine corporation, right? How many years did it take before they kind of moved to that? It was about 10 years. So a lot of this stuff just takes a long time because there's not really a lot of people that are within these corporations that are spending their time thinking about, hey, what can we do to change the processes that this company has spent so much time investing in perfecting, right? Like, corporations, just by their nature, don't embrace great change because, hell, the reason why they're big corporations is because those processes have been refined to the point where that's, that's where they are. So they're not really going to fall all over themselves to try out this AI support agent model, unless there's a lot of very smart people who are telling them, hey, you guys are going to get like fucking blown out of the water by this. Your business model is under threat. And even then, sometimes it's still slow, right? So it's
like usually it takes a crisis to move people. Like, for example,
like
everyone's on Zoom now because of
like a pandemic. Exactly. So external circumstances will have magic impacts on certain things. Gcash tripled its user base during the pandemic, right? And no amount of marketing campaign was ever gonna buy that much, that many new subscribers. So it was kind of one of those things that is very, very difficult to replicate. You could also argue that the whole Axie Infinity gaming phenomenon was a direct result of the fact that people were locked down in their homes and didn't have other, they didn't have alternative forms of income. And Axie Infinity seemed like a godsend because here was a game that you could play and you could earn cryptocurrencies. And hey, I don't know what a cryptocurrency is, but I'm gonna freaking learn it if I can earn 500 pesos a day from playing this freaking thing. So kind of those circumstances, I don't think you can replicate very easily. It's different here in the Philippines. It's different in other parts of the world. I'm sure there are all sorts of different kind of impacts that the COVID phenomenon had all throughout the world. So yeah, AI is going to be its own crisis, maybe.
It's surprisingly hard to put company information into an LLM and just have it like work off of that, and then do it mechanically to like so it scales, right? But I know of like, I don't know, 12 startups in San Francisco trying to solve this problem right now, right? So I think as soon as like they're able to convince, I don't know, Procter and Gamble that you don't need your back office customer service somewhere else because of this, like that's going to be the catastrophic event that is going to tip a lot of these things. But hopefully people learn more. Hopefully people learn more about AI before then. How do you you mentioned you do like a monthly thing with your artist team. How else do you think people should learn about AI stuff?
Well, I mean, in our case, it's kind of a narrow scope, right? Because in our case, we really only care about the art generators because that's kind of what is mostly impacting us. It's funny because I guess it's because I use social media, right? But if you're on social media right now, any kind of social media, but Twitter especially, or I guess I should say X, it's freaking impossible to not know about AI, right? Because there's always, like, every time I flip open the freaking app, there's someone who goes, "You're not going to believe the 8 new breakthroughs that AI just just this week, right? Just the 8 new breakthroughs. You're not going to believe what they are, but here they are. Don't forget to follow me." It's like a million people are now AI gurus.
Here are the best 30 ChatGPT prompts that you should be using,
like,
blah, blah, blah.
God. Right, yeah. So, I mean, it's possibly a consequence of being a social media, kind of, I'm in social media a lot, that it feels like I can't even freaking not hear about AI, like, in a 24-hour period. And there is a lot of it that is kind of bordering on hype and BS, because a lot of them are also kind of like, they're also trying to get followers, right? So they kind of write it in a way that is the most inflammatory or the most likely to make you think, oh my God, this is unbelievable. I gotta share this stuff, right? So there's also that half of it that it makes it kind of hard because the signal to noise ratio on some of this stuff is just totally off, right? But I guess the simplest way that I try to tell other folks is, like, pick a thing that you do on a regular basis and then see what AI can do to improve that, right? So in my case, it's 2 things. It's ChatGPT, and then it's Midjourney. And it's actually, it's not technically ChatGPT. It's actually just the search bar on my Windows machine now, because you can just type it directly in there, right? It does kind of throw it back into that same engine anyway. So
you use Bing, bro? I'm just kidding.
I mean, I know. Will wonders never cease. Actually, that is real capitulation there.
It's so how do you get better at it? Do you get your team members to get better at it? Or are you using it at YGG right now?
So we do use it for first drafts. So we do a lot of so YGG has a lot of these educational videos that we'll do. ChatGPT is not great at like Filipino. It's not conversational enough. Its English is great, but so what we'll usually do is we'll use it to first draft our scripts, and then we'll kind of do a second pass where we add some Taglish into it to make it a little bit more casual, and then kind of like kind of write it in a voice that sounds a little bit more like us. But in terms of like collecting facts about, kind of, hey, what's the best way to set up your first crypto wallet if you've never done that before? So ChatGPT whips up like these, very kind of fundamental steps, nothing insanely amazing, just enough to get you started. So that's worked for us. Kind of saves us that first hour of I guess just drafting and composing, and then yeah.
Have you ever tried to train it your data?
No,
like,
no. So I'm
like
actually I'm an end user. I'm an end user with this
Oh, no, I
stuff.
mean, sorry.
Yeah.
Give ChatGPT samples of your work and then ask it to write a prompt.
Oh,
Yeah.
so I've only done that with some of my my own personal writing. I've never done
Yeah.
it with like a script that we actually, produced. But that might be interesting too, actually.
Yeah.
I still don't quite know if it understands it's Filipino, it's a little wonky. Just a little bit. It doesn't
Better than
sound
mine.
I mean,
That's
okay.
not
I mean,
it's
that's
not
a
an
spectrum.
achievement.
It's a spectrum, right? It's a
Right.
spectrum. Let's say I'm not gonna be addressing Malacanang with a
Right.
ChatGPT script. Let's just
Or
say that. Or will I? I don't know.
yeah. Any more questions from you, Doug? We got 7 minutes left.
Okay, immediate future. What's your first maybe advice to people who, just to get ahead of the crowd, maybe inspired by your own journey in
Mhm.
crypto? Like what did it
Yeah.
take to be a leader or first mover in the crypto space, and can that apply to AI?
Oh, actually, so in crypto, we have this saying, timing the market is not as important as time in the market. What that means is just stick around and, kind of be humble firstly. So, just because you think that you came in at exactly the right point, typically that is never the case, right? Crypto has this habit of humbling everyone. Sometimes it happens multiple times too before you'll actually learn the lesson. So I think in crypto, it was not how long it was not like because I came in 2014 that made me, like kind of a reliable source of crypto information. It was because I stuck around. I never kind of quit. And I did that mostly just by not buying into too much of the hype, but also not giving in to too much of the FUD. So I think that's kind of this compromise that you have to kind of do in your mind where, okay, it's like, I'm not going to go crazy with the greed. I'm also not going to go crazy with the fear. And being moderate, somewhere in the middle, has always been kind of the balance I've found that kind of works the best. I think that most new technologies, AI included, the way we interact with AI needs to kind of have that kind of temperance also, where you're kind of somewhere in the middle, where you are both not super negative about it, and at the same time not ridiculously optimistic about what might happen. There's a lot of this stuff that is unknown, and it would do us well to just admit that we actually don't know, right? I don't know where it's going, but at the moment, the things that I am doing to keep myself at least informed about it is by playing around with the tools that are consumer grade, like Bing, which is funny, and Midjourney
Send the video
and
ever.
Adobe
Shout out
Firefly.
Bing.
Yeah. Hey, man, not only do I use Bing on my Windows machine, I have the Bing floating widget on my Android device.
Oh,
Just to
how about
kind of
that?
give you
Congrats.
an idea of how reliant I am on this stupid thing. But it's stupid bullshit. Like, like I'm trying to remember like what the correct combination of salt and pepper is depending on how much meat you have in your pot. It's like stuff like that, right? It's like, yeah, and I guess I could Google that, but Google will give you search links, and I don't like clicking.
Right.
So like, and Bing will just give you the thing, right? I was like, okay, great, thank you, Bing. I don't know if it's correct, but like, I didn't poison myself, so there's that. I don't know.
High standards.
Yeah, no, not,
Right.
yeah. My cooking standards for myself are incredibly low. As long as I don't poison myself or my dogs, I'm good. So yeah.
Nice. Well, we got to get the dogs together sometime. Thanks
Oh
for
yeah, for sure,
making time for us, man. Is there anything you want to promote?
Yeah,
Talk about?
well, I mean, obviously, I am still very much a big believer in the mission of YGG. My departure is more of a like, I think it's time to kind of go and explore other stuff for me personally. The only thing I've got that is kind of my own personal thing right now is my weekly newsletter. That's at cryptoday.live, cryptoday.live. I talk about obviously cryptocurrency news. I also complain a little bit about AI on there as well now. But it's always kind of from the perspective of the Filipino business sector and the Filipino community. I've been doing that for about 1.5 years now. So that's it. Thanks so much for the time, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Cheers.
We're gonna have